when the world has got you down. And
Alzheimer's sucks. It's an equal opportunity disease that chips away at everything we hold dear. And to date, there's no cure. So until there is, we continue to fight with the most powerful tool in our arsenal, love. This is Love Conquers Alls, a real and really positive podcast that takes a deep dive into everything Alzheimer's, the good, the bad, and everything in between. And now, here's your hosts, Susie Singer-Carter and Cassie Cruz.
all you gotta do is sing a song.
So about 11 years ago, when my mother was first diagnosed with Alzheimer's, a mutual friend of ours said, you should really meet with my friend Leeza Gibbons. She's been through all of this. She's very active in the community, and she's just lovely. And we had lunch. Leeza brought me her phenomenal book called Take Your Oxygen First, and proceeded to give me the best advice that anyone had given me in terms of Alzheimer's, which was to videotape my mom and videotape her as much as I can.
That's got to be the greatest blessing, because you're going to have those memories.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, they're changing so much. Before you know it, they've progressed another stage. And so I am so glad I did that. But on top of all that, let me just tell you a little bit about Leeza Gibbons. She's an Emmy Award winner. She's one of the most well-known pop culture icons on the air.
Well, of course, everybody knows her.
Everybody knows Leeza. And she has an impressive background in the field of entertainment and news media with shows such as Entertainment Tonight, her PBS show My Generation, her own talk show, Leeza.
Wow.
And she's become an instrumental advocate for healthcare, wellness, and caregiving. And she's also the founder of Leeza's Care Connection, a supportive, safe, free place where you can go and have coffee, cry, worry, chat, just anything you need. There's a community for you of people who are caregivers, and they do care. Right now, Leeza is currently seen on camera as a co-host of the Rose Parade and the host of the 3-week yoga retreat. She is a mother. She's a wife. She's a businesswoman. She's a New York Times best-selling author. She's making me tired and feeling very, very underaccomplished. She's a self-proclaimed FCTA, former caregiver turned advocate. We're so excited to have her here. Let me introduce you to Leeza Gibbons.
Ladies, you are way too kind.
It's not true.
I'm so supportive and so cheering you on and so inspired by what the two of you are doing, and excited to add what I can to your conversation and to your advocacy, because we need it.
We do. We need it. There's a void out there. There's not enough conversation and enough information about really how to caregive in this world.
And it can be really overwhelming, which is, I know, part of what you're trying to do is break it down and help people take a breath and realize that we've got to move forward by focusing on what's left rather than being so stuck in what's lost, because it's
totally
brutal. It's really brutal. And, that's why I started Leeza's Care Connection. I was where you both have been. This person that I loved so much, my mother, was battling this dark thief, and I didn't know what to do. So for me, being able to jump into action and focus my grief and my sadness and my sense of helplessness in some direction really saved my life. Saved my sanity. And anybody that's facing this right now can understand you do feel like you're going to break.
Totally. I can't agree with you more, like 1,000%, Leeza, because now I know all these almost a decade later, or more than a decade later, with all the advice you gave me when you had cared for your mother, Jean, and I was thinking, this is not going to happen to me. Like, I couldn't imagine what you were saying was going to be true. I just couldn't. I couldn't even fathom that my mother would be going down that slippery slope of a place that was so frightening to me. And it's really what motivated me to make my film as well, My Mom and the Grill, because I realized that if I don't connect to the positive, the alternative is a very, very dark place to be.
Well, our brain wants to protect us. And I love that you instinctively you moved forward with what you knew. You knew how to tell stories. You knew how to make films. You knew how to connect. And you moved forward with that. And that's how all of us get through anything. We start kind of where we are with what we have. And it's really important that people who have a story, and that's everybody, that we join hands and join forces and realize the value of that story. But I love what you said, Susie, that you couldn't fathom that your mother was going to go there. We can't imagine, because we're programmed to think that our moms are going to live forever. The people that we love are going to be in our lives forever. And we just can't quite allow ourselves to see this decompensating and this disappearing and this dance with a stranger that will soon be ours.
It's so true. I remember you telling me, take those videos, because before you know it, it's another chapter will be gone and gone and gone. And I thought, you're right, because my mom was such a force. She was she was a firecracker, and I thought, there's no way. I thought I was going to talk my mom out of it, frankly.
I thought I was going to cure it. This is what we do. I thought, well, I'll just, put my head to the grind, meet enough people. We're just going to figure the darn thing out.
Me too. Yeah. You and me, we're like soul sisters that way. I was like, God damn it. This is my mom. I'm going to make her, we're close. She's going to get this. We're going to conquer this, Yeah, but you learn.
And honestly, someday we will. And slowly but surely, we're beginning to strip away at this mystery. But the brain is such a conundrum. And while we are waiting on cures, which many people think will come in the form of something like a cocktail, like we have for AIDS and other other diseases, while we're waiting on that cure, we really have to focus on care. So we've got 40 million caregivers. We are the healthcare system. All the candidates are talking about universal healthcare. Okay, great. But guess what? We're delivering it every day. The moms, the husbands, the wives, and the sons and daughters, we're out there showing up on the front lines. And just like, firefighters and first responders run towards the problem and towards the burning building, that's just what we're doing. And it is nothing short of heroic.
And we need more. Thank you. You're right. And we need more. It's even with 40 million of us, there's not enough, because the care is relentless.
And what did you do about that, Leeza? How did you handle it? How did you deal with it?
I kicked and screamed and was reluctant and tried not to be recruited into this army at first. And once I was able to kind of see my reality and reframe what I needed to do, I just went about the business of becoming radically resilient. If there's anybody that can build tomorrow with the broken pieces of today, it's caregivers, because they have to do it. And the reason why we started our foundation was because we thought, what can we do while we're waiting on these cures? If we can't yet fix the disease, we can fix the fact that many caregivers are dying before their diagnosed loved ones. That's how incredibly overwhelming compassion fatigue really is. So the conservative number is 30% will die before their loved one. Many people say it's much higher than that. It is such a crushing negative effect on your system, on your immune system, psychologically, physically, emotionally, financially, spiritually. You begin to unravel. After a while, you're just getting by. And if you're not replenishing and refueling and resetting yourself, which sometimes means today was awful, I really effed up today, tomorrow I get another chance. Learning to let go of all of the things that went wrong is what I mean by being radically resilient. It's a new way of having different expectations for yourself, because 10 years is the amount of years that you will erase from your own life.
Wow.
Because you are a caregiver. We can change that.
I never heard that term, compassion fatigue, and it resonated so much for me. And I feel like, they call us the sandwich generation, because we're stuck between our children and our parents who are ailing. And then I think I'm now like I'm like a club sandwich. My daughter just had a baby.
Oh, that's wonderful. Congrats.
Thank you so much. There's a little bit of caregiving going on with the baby. She'll be fine. But, when you say compassion fatigue, I see it in my daughter, and then I see it.
And I see it in you, Susie.
Right? She sees it in me all the time because
I'm like,
I
you need to
literally,
take a break. You need some food.
oh my God,
Rest.
Lisa, when I read that, it bumped me exactly, where I live right now. I think I've got to represent so many people because I realize, and my daughter, watching her having her compassion fatigue, like she literally calls me and says, "Mom, I don't know what to do," and I think it's so important to talk about it. So I'm glad that you are bringing it into the zeitgeist.
And I want to talk about your book about take your oxygen first. Could you, because that's exactly what we're talking about right now. Would you mind describing how that journey was for you and how rewarding it has been for you to write that?
When I started taking steps forward and redefining myself as a caregiver, my dream is that all of us will just put our hands up and say, yes, I'm a caregiver. Let me tell you my story. But we don't. We go to our corners and we hide and we overeat, or we don't sleep, or we sleep too much, or we spend too much. All the things we do to deny these feelings and stuff these feelings. And so the reframe for that was the reason for take your oxygen first, just like on the airplane. But, you're a mom, but if you're sitting next to a kid, put your oxygen mask on before you help your child. Well, that's so darn hard for any of us. But, on an airplane, you've got I think 9 to 18 seconds of action time before that decision becomes one that's irreversibly regrettable. So in life, we really don't have much time either before we have to say, wait, if I have to take more for myself so that I can give more to the one that I love. And so if whatever that means to you, and it's deeply personal, if that means I need to shut the door and have a bath and have no one bother me for 30 minutes. I need to stay in my car before I go inside the house and meditate. I need to, whatever it is, take a walk, and it doesn't have to be massive life changes, but those little resets will give you the resilience that you need, so that you can be fiercely optimistic as you go forward.
And what happens with myself, for example, you feel so guilty about oh, I'm taking that time and I should be doing this or I should be doing that.
We're a gold star society. We judge ourselves. We wait for other people to give us the feedback on how well we're doing. And if you're waiting to become world's best caregiver, it's just not going to happen. First of all, no one seeks the title. No one runs for that office. There's no caregiver Barbie. No one plays this.
Not yet.
Right? When you're growing up, it's not like, wow, I just want to someday be the best caregiver that I can for my mom.
Right.
So there's no sweater to put on that fits. And so we just kind of take those clothes that are so itchy and uncomfortable or whatever, and we put them at the darkest corner in the top of the closet. And we wait and we wait and we wait until we're forced to kind of bring it out and say, oh my gosh, I'm a caregiver.
Yeah. Yeah, because there's so much confusion and misunderstanding about the disease and misconception about how to deal with people that have the disease, so much fear that it ends up one person primarily it becomes the caregiver in a family, which is so much responsibility. And it's really the reason why I want to keep the conversation going to demystify it.
Boy, you're so right. And when you say there's usually one person, that is both a blessing and a curse. And it's usually a daughter, not always. There are the average age of a caregiver is 49 years old, but there are lots of millennial caregivers. There are lots of caregivers that are obviously much older, but it's usually a daughter. And in families where there are siblings, there's so much time spent being hurt, angry, resentful of the other siblings that aren't showing up in the way you think they should, or the way you want them to, or the way you think mom or dad would want and expect them to. But as soon as we can acknowledge that we all have different limits, we all have different capacity to deal with our grief and our pain, then the sooner we can kind of get on with doing what needs to be done, because families waste a lot of time with the infighting that just creates more guilt and delays the grief. You're taking a leadership role, even though it may not be the one that you want, and you may be mad as hell that you're the person that has to do it. There's always some way we can learn to delegate. And whether you have siblings or you're an only whether you have bio, family or not, you're better off if you can become an effective delegator early on. And part of that is so simple, so counterintuitive for women, which is when people say, gosh, I know you're going through a hard time, let me know if I can help. And we never do. We feel like we're going to lose our place in heaven if we accept help from somebody, but our vulnerability makes us strong. And when you get used to, say, write down the list of things that you would ask people to do if only you could, or you believed them, or you trusted them, or you were willing to show yourself, whatever. And those things can be anything like, if I call you just and say I'm going to vent, just stay on the other end of the phone till I'm done. Please pick up my dry cleaning. Please come walk the dog. Please sit with mom while I take a bath. Please call my brother and ask him why he's being so crummy in this deal. Whatever it is, have an answer ready. And people want to help, but they really don't know how.
And so important, because if you ask, and that's the vulnerability about asking somebody, that's super courageous.
It is super courageous. I loved how you put that, because we think that we are somehow diminished or weak, but we're not. We're leaning into our strength, and we're learning how to be competent and confident caregivers. And that's the work that we do at Leeza's Care Connection. So, a lot of people that call us, for example, they say, well, I'm not joiners. I don't want to do a support group, or it doesn't matter. Wherever you are is where you are. And to even use an anonymous name is freeing. Just call up, hi, this is Nancy, and, my mother has Alzheimer's and I don't know what I'm doing. If you need to take your name off of it, then do that. But just anything you need to do to recognize that you're not alone, because you're really not.
And that's why you started Leeza's Care Connection, correct?
Exactly right. Our the universal experience is getting bigger and bigger. We talked about the numbers. It's been called a gray tsunami. We know that legislatively we're not getting the love that we need. We know that the money is not there. So a lot of care falls to not only the unpaid family caregivers, which is who we support, but the nonprofit organizations, the NGOs, the community organizations that can just reach out and say, we're here and figure this thing out together. And the reality is, like you ladies, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a scientist, despite my most naive desire to conquer this thing, I'm not going to find a cure. But what I can do is help diagnosed loved ones get better care. And the way to get better care for the caregiver translates to better outcomes for the care receiver. And it prevents the next generation of what we call the worried well from stepping into those automatic shoes of having all the lifestyle risks. Forget the genetic risk. It is what it is. But if you've got the genetic risk, and then you expose yourself to, or I shouldn't say that because you're not doing it, but you are in an environment that is putting you under assault every day, then that genetic risk is going to come forward. And just because you have a gene in your family doesn't mean you're going to get Alzheimer's. Just because you don't have a gene in your family doesn't mean you aren't going to get it. We all have a brain. We are all at risk.
It's right. And that's why it needs to be much more mainstreamed and understood, because we are all at risk, and it is such a long exit and an expensive one. And my mother, I mean, we went through all of her funds, and then thank God found, an organization, which is the Jewish Home, which actually had a place for her. I wouldn't know what to do after 12 years because it's so expensive, the care. It's just daunting, never mind you're emotional, but the practicality of it is daunting.
It is, at a time when, when your brain is under grief and stress and duress, no matter how smart you are, you can't access the logical information, and you can't create a path for yourself alone. And that's why a lot of what we do is help people come up with a game plan. Like, all right, it is expensive. If you don't have the money, it's not like we're going to be able to snap our fingers and find a place or find free support, which is what we offer, free support. But for your loved one, if you need respite, whatever it is that you need, our job is to help connect you to the people and the places and the resources that can begin to drill down and find some answers, which doesn't mean that it's going to be easy, that it's going to be financially pain-free. But the signs of burnt out caregivers, that's one, is just not being able to see, you're in the forest and you can't see the
Right.
trees.
Yeah, you're tired and exhausted, and then you don't open yourself up to the love or the possibilities or the help around you because you don't know how to do that.
That's exactly right. And that's why those of us like you ladies who have walked the path and have a different lens on it, it is so important that we offer ourselves and our stories to the other people, because remember, for each of us, how lost you feel. And it's, when you're having physical pain, when you're having a lack of sleep, when you're depressed, when you're feeling overwhelmed, when you're having all those other signs of caregiver burnout, that's the time when it's the hardest to say, all right, I'm going to make that tough phone call, and I'm going to ask Susie and Cassie for some help, or,
Right.
I'm going to go meet so-and-so for coffee, which was really a very brave thing, Susie, that you did.
Oh.
It's hard to do that when you're in the midst of the struggle.
No, I mean, that's the other thing. It's really emotional when somebody that you love so much, that you respect so much, is going through something like this. It's just so emotional.
Also, it's the financial burden, which you guys both brought up. Lisa's Care connection, that's free of charge.
Yes, our services are free. We have respite. So if you are taking care of your dad and you want to come in for a support group, or you want to come in for an education class, or you need to come in and meet with one of our resource specialists, we have people that are trained to take care of your loved one while that's going on. That's really important for people because having the availability or the finances for in-home care companions is a wonderful support, but one that's not available, or certainly not available all the time, to families.
Yep.
So that's a lot of what we do. And in our support groups, which are organized by whether it's adult children or if it's spouses or whatever, they're organized in a way so that when you're in that group, much of the best advice that you can get comes from that peer-to-peer experience.
The community.
That's right. What worked for them? Try this. Did you call that one?
Right.
It's great to have experts to go to, but the experts are the ones that are in it.
Yep.
And your location is?
We are in Burbank, which is my home where I live, and in California, in the LA area. And our flagship is my hometown where my family comes from and where my mother lived and loved and died, in South Carolina. So those are our two physical locations. But if you call us, and our toll-free number is 1-800-OK-LEEZA, Leeza. We can help you no matter where you are. We can help you at least get a handoff phone call in the right direction of someone that can figure this out for you in your neighborhood.
That's so great. That's so great. You know what? Let's take a quick break, talk about some great sponsors, and then we'll be back in 1 second. This is so great.
This is Don Priest, beloved producer of Love Conquers Alls. Hey, if you've been thinking about starting your own podcast, stop thinking and do it. Buzzsprout is hands down the easiest and best way to launch, promote, and track your podcast. Your show can be online and listed in all the major podcast directories like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and more within minutes of finishing your first recording. Buzzsprout is passionate about helping you succeed. So join Love Conquers Alls and over 100,000 podcasters already using Buzzsprout to get their message out to the world. And now, back to Love Conquers Alls.
Hey, everybody, you're listening to Love Conquers All's podcast.
And we're talking to Leeza Gibbons.
Could you tell us a little bit about your mother's story? Do you mind sharing that with us?
Well, it's one of my favorite things to talk about. My mother is with me every day. I feel like a mother's work is never done, and boy, is that true with mine. She died in 2008 after struggling for over a decade, like her mother, my granny, struggled for over a decade, disappearing with this disease. And my mother was so remarkable because of her experience with her mom. When before she got a diagnosis, she forced us to accept what was going on. And she literally lined us up, my brother, my sister, my dad, me, my sister-in-law. And she said, look, when I can no longer call you by name, I don't want to live with you. I don't want you to take me into your home. I want you to help Daddy know when it's time to let me go. And my mother pulled out brochures and said, here are the kinds of places where I would like to go.
Wow.
And they were Alzheimer's communities. Now that was brave and self-aware, and we were
Amazing.
like, no, it's never going to happen.
Right.
We're going to take care of you. And obviously it's such a deeply personal choice. We had our marching orders, which kept our family intact. But a lot of times a sibling or a spouse will say, I promise I'm going to keep you at home. And then the loved one goes after the knives and starts running out in the street nude and
Yep.
gets arrested and physically is putting bruises on the caregiver. And it's untenable
Yep.
many times to keep this loved one at home. And there's tremendous guilt.
Guilt.
So that's another piece in our culture that I think we need to talk about.
And shift and allow
Oh
it
my
to be
God.
okay from loving that person, putting them in a safe place, and also the caregivers being in a safe place.
I always feel guilty. If I miss a day that I'm supposed to visit my mom, I feel guilty. I can't help it. But there was a moment that happened between my mom and I that I actually put in my film because it was so profound. It was this evening in the middle of the night when my mom was very agitated and really, really upset. And then she finally turned around and had this moment of lucidity and just said, you got to put me in a home. You've got to live your own life. She didn't want to be a burden.
Of course. Oh, wow. I got chill bumps when you said that. I mean, I call those moments a kiss from the angels. Where there's incredible lucidity, incredible clarity amidst the insanity. And yet you know her and you saw it.
I saw it, and it was a gift. I don't think I would have been able to release her if not for that.
And I totally understand that. You've seen one case of Alzheimer's, you've seen one case. So you don't know that, sometimes as people, they end up, they have that long-term memory and they end up at a time in their life that was peaceful and happy and they're loving. But I also worry that family members say, gosh, mom is now cursing and she's being, such a bitch. I guess she was really that way. No. That is the disease talking. This is eating away at your loved one's brain and taking all of those memories and deposits and synapses and things that make sense, and they're jumbled up. It is not that your loved one is suddenly violent and horrible. It's just a brain eating disease.
And it's so frustrating when I brought my daughter's baby to meet her for the first time, and she doesn't have the command of her words and articulation anymore. And so when she first saw her, she just looked and said, oh, gosh, damn it. That's beautiful.
That's so sweet.
And I mean, she tried so hard and all the words came just like my mom. It was there she was. God damn it. That's beautiful.
Really precious. And what a good expression.
Right?
That's a great expression.
And speaking of that, I think it's a good segue because we're very simpatico in that, having lived through this diagnosis with our mother, we also know as caregivers that being a caregiver can lead to a lot of positive gifts. And that's the thing that I wanted to express in my movie. And I think that's your philosophy as well. And so I'm wondering if you could share some of the gifts that you might have received along the way.
There is so much humor in all of this sadness and pain, and to identify those and give yourself permission to laugh really is important. My mom used to love to get dressed up. And so we, in her stage of the disease, maybe where your mom is, or even slightly before, we were at a fundraiser where she was wearing this dress that I had loaned her, this gorgeous sequined aquamarine, beautiful kind of princessy type dress. And we were at this party, and then, you turn around and she was gone. And just like when a toddler gets away from you and you're like, oh my gosh, where's mom? And so I'm darting all around the room. I'm looking for my mother. And I saw her in the corner of the room. She had unzipped the dress. It was resting in a puddle around her ankles. She's standing there in her bra and panties, and I'm horrified. And I swoop up to her and go, Mom, and I'm trying to put the dress back on. I'm, oh my gosh, Mom, what is going on? What's the matter? And she went, what's the matter? This party is boring as hell, and I want to put my pajamas on and go to bed. It's the same thing.
I love it. I love your mom so much. I love it.
And as horrible as those moments are, they're differently inhibited in ways that we can't really imagine. But in terms of the gifts that do come with this, it's like Winnie the Pooh. You really are stronger than you think you are, and you're more patient than you think you ever could be, you have more ability to keep going forward than you could conjure up in a million lifetimes, thanks to the brutality of this experience.
Oh, that's beautiful.
That's
That's
beautiful.
beautiful.
I want to also say how grateful we are to your mother for you, and also just everything that she taught you and that she shared, and her courage to speak the truth about what was coming up and to even have that insight. I also want to ask you another question. Did you guys have a chimpanzee growing up?
It's one of the most prominent hoax rumors in the internet. It's the craziest thing. We never did. You know, if you were to look at the anatomy of a rumor, how the heck do they start? And some of them just, the other one that I find as, well, not as extreme as that, but because I actually have met Billy Idol, but people said for years that Billy Idol and I dated. Well, that never happened either.
I love it.
Isn't that funny?
It's
That is
funny.
so much fun. That is so funny. And I would go for that because, you know, your mom sounded like she had a great sense of humor, and
Oh,
she had a great insight.
yeah, one of those steel magnolias that was just sexy and sassy and
Ah,
wonderful lady.
oh my God, we really are connected. I think because my mom, I always say she has more game even now than I've ever had in my life. All she has to, if a man walks by, she pushes me aside, get out of my way. Hello.
Oh, that
Suddenly
is
she
the
can speak.
greatest.
Suddenly she can speak.
Get out, Susie. I must have him.
Oh yes. Oh totally. No, it's
He is mine, young lady.
yes. She
Move
and
aside,
she
move aside.
and let me tell you, they respond. I don't know what it is. It's a gift. I don't have it.
Because she has charisma. She has the thing.
She does. She does.
Hey, Leeza, I have a question for you. You have 2 F words that are really important. Could you please share those with us?
Yeah. Yes. Well, you have to be flexible and forgiving. And the other F words apply as well. Don't get me wrong.
Yes,
Those
for sure.
those are the things that will get you through. You know, you start out saying, okay, and we've got this doctor's appointment, and then I'm going to get you, you know, somebody's going to come over and we're going to work on your hygiene and help you brush your teeth. And well, you've got a whole day planned, or you've got an hour of the day planned, and it never goes that way. And you have to be flexible and forgive that messed up. I'm going to forgive myself for getting off track. I'm going to forgive myself for being mad. I'm going to forgive myself for losing my temper, and forgive other people for not showing up, for hurting your feelings, all those things that we carry around with. If you can just remember those F words, they really do help.
That's very helpful. Definitely.
And beautiful.
I have a question for you. Does Lisa's Care Connection work with children? I know that when my mom was diagnosed again, I had a younger daughter, and at the time, people used to tell me why, when my mom lived with me for a year, why are you exposing your daughter to that? It's so difficult. It's so hard. And Lisa, our mutual friend who introduced us, who is a doctor, an endocrinologist, said to me, "Are you kidding me? You couldn't be doing better for her." And really, at the end of the year, my daughter wasn't ready for my mom to leave, which was, my answer. I did the right thing. What do you think about that?
We culturally are so afraid of confronting reality. We are age phobic. We're afraid of anything that's old, or that, we're afraid of walkers and canes, for goodness sake.
Mm-hmm.
So we have lots of kind of built-in barriers to embracing people who are different. And part of what we tried to do with our work in South Carolina, we have a care cafe, for example. And it's not just for families that have diagnosed loved ones with Alzheimer's. It's for people in the neighborhood to come by and hang out with those people.
Nice.
So that it isn't so polarizing and so scary. Now, that doesn't mean that there are times when it's scary, but every time a caregiver takes a loved one out with a child, for example, or just on their own, and they're able to say to the hostess or the server, if it's a little business card they give or whatever that says, please be patient, my wife has Alzheimer's, which is what my dad used to do. That's a step towards educating the general population. When you're grocery shopping with your loved one and you say to the store manager, mom's going to have a cart and I'm going to have a cart. When we check out, will you please restock everything in mom's cart? Because we're not going to be paying for that. But it's a way to extend our kindness
Yeah,
and
love
just
it.
let people in on what you need.
I
So
love it.
I really believe in help. And and we work with high school groups too that are what they call action kids, and they're now embracing the cause. So it's getting better, but there's still not enough support for children. You're right.
It's important too because and I noticed, I had a friend of mine brought her daughter who was a toddler to visit me with my mom, and the toddler was beyond frightened. And then you saw caregivers who bring their kids on a regular basis, and those kids take it in stride. Hey Jack, what can I get for you? And Jack is, having an agitation fit in the corner, right? And the kid's going, here you go, here's the clicker, here you go, what can I get you? And they just and then go back to playing
Yeah,
because it becomes part of the world, which it should.
which it should. You're so right.
and
You're so
and
right.
what you're teaching and showing and what we're doing as well, it's all like, thank you, Leeza, for showing us what love really looks like with those stories and the things that you were talking about that your organization is doing. And it really does take a whole community and for us to be much more collaborative as a society with all these things that are going on.
I love
Yes.
your mantra I read that you wrote, that you say older is the new brave. It's perfect. Can you it really is, because as I'm inching towards there, boy, well, like my mom used to say, it's not for the weak at heart. So tell me why you say that now, because I love it.
I started thinking that way, ironically, when I was doing Dancing with the Stars way back in the Stone Ages when it was a new show.
Which you were great, by the way.
You're
And I'm
very
so
funny.
jealous because I
She
Okay,
did a
love.
that's
great
funny.
job. Beautiful,
Yeah.
I
beautiful,
was
gorgeous.
not great. I was not great, but
Ye-
I went into it thinking, okay, I'm going to turn 50 on the show. My mother was still alive. And I thought, I'm going to really let go of all the inhibitions and restraints I have. I'm just going to go out there and dance the tango this one night on our birthday, dance for my mom, dance for anybody else that feels like they don't have a reason to celebrate. And I thought, okay, I'm going to be fabulous at 50. So I had these fabulous at 50 buttons made. Well, that was a case where I realized there was another F word that I really was at 50. But
I mean, I keep forgetting I'm not 27. I do. Part of it is the way that you look at life, and part of it is the way that society looks at us. And so
that's right.
we can't let them frame it for us. We have to frame it for ourselves.
That's right. And you girls are doing a beautiful job with that.
What is your mission or goal in life, if I may ask?
To work harder and care more. That's it.
You're so wonderful.
You're awesome, and we appreciate you so much. We really do.
I appreciate the two of you. It's what we have just done and what you guys are doing with your Love Conquers Alls is so important because that is the emotional salve that we need, to apply daily to our wounds of going through this disease. And I'm very grateful to have a chance to share love and laughs and information and really just that message that we can be empowered even as we feel like, all hell is breaking loose.
100%. And do take advantage of Leeza's Care Connection. They have so many resources, and if they don't have something, they'll find it for you.
Thank you. Yeah, so we're leezascareconnection.org. That's on our social platforms as well. But the phone number 1-800-OK-Leeza, and we're here for you. Got the door open, got the coffee on.
Your mom did a wonderful job. Thank you, Mother.
I'm going to pass that along to my children that you said so.
I know.